Hi, I'm Bill Crane. I'm the Executive Director of Montana Shares. I want to do a series of videos to let people do their orientations on their own time at their own place. This is what this series is all about. This first one has two purposes. It's designed for an executive director who does not plan on being the representative of the member group, or can be the representative of the member group. This is sort of a primer orientation, what the big view of Montana Shares is all about. It should take about 10 minutes as my goal. So let's dive into it. What is Montana Shares all about? We serve three groups of people in our community. Number one, we serve donors. We make it super easy for them to give. There's nothing simpler than workplace giving. You pledge in the fall, it comes out of your check for the entire next year, every 2 weeks, every month. You don't have to think about it. It's easy, simple, and painless. That's our philosophy of ESP. The second group we serve is the employers. Same thing, ESP. If they were to try to do this on their own, they'd have dozens of liability accounts and dozens of line items on people's checks. And instead, they have one simple line item that says Montana Shares. And then they write a check to us. We write checks to all the different groups that goes to. We also do write-ins. And then the obvious third group that we serve is we serve our member groups. We give our member groups access to the workplaces that they would not have access to otherwise, namely all the cities, counties, schools, universities, insurance companies, banks, stuff like that. Wherever we have workplaces, those places are typically not accessible to individual nonprofits. They're only accessible to federations like Montana Shares. So those are the three main groups that we serve. We're going to dive into some of the big picture stuff, the structure. Let's go ahead and get started and watch some of these slides. This first slide is just the intro to the PDF that's available of the orientation in the Montana Shares member website. Simply click Get Started. There's a table of contents. I think that's a little old-fashioned. I'm just going to skip over to the first document. This is the mission, vision, value statement. It's important enough that I'm going to read it. Our mission, Montana Shares, is a partnership of Montana-based nonprofit groups devoted to improving the quality of life in communities throughout Montana. Our vision. We acknowledge in Montana where all citizens acknowledge their responsibility to contribute to their communities and to the well-being of the state and nation for present and future generations. Value and address arts and culture, sustainable communities, protection of our environment, dignity and human services and animal welfare, tolerance and diversity, social activism, and educational opportunities. Recognize Montana Shares' commitment to honor donor choice to achieve the highest standards of accountability in charitable giving and regard Montana Shares as the most dependable source of support and partnership for statewide and local nonprofits to promote their specific mission. Our values. Montana Shares honors donor choice in giving. We work to achieve the highest standards of financial accounting and reporting. All member groups are accountable for meeting nonprofit standards and requirements. We build relationships and encourage community involvement by connecting member groups with donors, employers, employees, and volunteers. We assist member groups through networking, training, technical assistance, and support. We're a member-directed partnership of groups working together for the common good of Montana Shares. Each member group is honored for its distinctive mission and advocates for its partners. Now we'll switch over to how we do it. We'll give a little bit of history first. Back in 1988, 9 member groups got together and started this organization. That first year, they raised $11,223. And you can see here as time went on, it keeps going up and up. We've gone from 9 member groups through a series of some full and associates, which is a structure that we've changed more recently. Got as high as maybe 42 member groups. You can see we've gone from 11,000 up into the 200,000s, up into the 300,000s. And then you can also see around the time of the recession here, it starts dropping off a little bit as giving nationally has changed a lot. But over the years, we've raised over $4.9 million for 26 years of giving for our member groups. This is something we get asked quite often. What's the difference between Montana Shares and United Way? There's about 3 differences. The first one is geography. United Ways typically serve relatively small areas, typically 1 to 2 counties. So Lewis and Clark County United Way serves Lewis and Clark, Jefferson, and Broadwater County. Other ones around the state serve 1 to 3 counties. Montana Shares is here to cover all the other groups that are not in those counties that are providing statewide stuff. Montana Wilderness Association, Montana Wildlife Federation, Montana Food Bank Network, Rural Employment Opportunities, these are all groups that would not fit into the United Way model because they're serving the entire state. I'm going to scroll down a little bit here. The other significant thing is United Ways provide direct services to humans. I add that last bit. They just say direct services. What that means is if you're an animal, you're not going to get services. If you're the arts, if you're culture, if you're things like that, recycling, those things aren't going to be eligible for United Way funds because they're not direct services. So we have the groups that work on systemic change in the state, the groups that work for the environment, work for animals, things like that. And then the third major thing is United Way promotes giving to their community fund. And then they have a committee of people that figure out what they think is the best use of those funds within the community. We don't want to make those choices. We believe in donor choice. That's a significant difference. Now they have donor choice, they have that option, but it's not what they promote. We promote donor choice. We think that you as a donor know what you want to support and you can go ahead and support that, and we'll honor that and we'll make sure that money gets to the people. Move down just a little bit more. There's often good synergy between the groups. For instance, Montana Food Bank Network supplies several pantries throughout the state that are often United Way agencies. Big Brothers Big Sisters of Montana is a Montana Shares group. Big Brothers Big Sisters of Helena, for instance, is a United Way recipient of funds. So there's that great energy and great synergy around the state between our groups. We do great work, they do great work, so it's just an opportunity for everyone to do great work. Okay, this particular slide is a chart of what our structure is all about. You can see up here at the top, the first thing is we have members. That's what you are. We have at-large members. These are people that are not associated with a particular group. They're often retired. They've been involved with Montana Shares possibly as a representative in the past. They want to stay involved. Moving down to this area here, we have our local committees in Great Falls, Bozeman, Helena, Butte, Missoula. Billings is currently expansionary for us. We get together in these cities a few times a year, talk about strategy, let all the groups meet, network, things like that. And then as we move through the year, we have sort of these really big cycles. In the beginning of the year, we do workplace access. This is a term you'll hear often. Access simply means accessing new workplaces to try to get the ability for people to give to our member groups there. It also is a term that is used to make a work site better. Then toward fall, usually late July, early August, we have workplace giving campaigns where we actually go out to the workplaces. We have the opportunity to present some of the time. Often we just have the opportunity to pass out our brochures and people actually pledge. Here, this last part, the campaign dollars don't come in until January of the next year. People are pledging in the fall for money that will come out of their checks starting January of the next year. And following that, that'll actually eventually start flowing out to the Montana Shares member groups as it comes into our organization. This is a chart I've tried to put together so people understand this a little differently. We'll keep some motion going here. This red time from July through December is when people are doing the pledging that I just spoke about. And then this blue area is when money is actually coming out of someone's check. And hopefully the employer has sent us money either on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis. Some of them send it out every pay period. And then the second quarter starts. You get your first check in the first part of May for this period here. The blue matches the blue. And then as we move through April, May, and June, in July you get another check for the next quarter, for the second quarter. In October you get the third quarter funds. And in January of the next year, you get the fourth quarter funds. Then as we move into the next year, actually each one of these particular checks is not for a quarter, it's for a fifth. So you get a fifth of what was pledged, fifth. And then in this time period, the following year, we do reconciliation, we go through our audit, we make sure all of our books are good, and then your group will get a final check after everything's cleaned up. That check would also then correspond to this first check of this second year. This is another view of our organizational structure. We have members, we have at-large members like we mentioned before. Our council, which is our equivalent of a board of directors, is 12 individuals, or up to 12 individuals. They can be either members or at-large members. We have a nominating committee that helps get people elected to the roles that we need. We have an executive committee of chair, vice chair, treasurer, and secretary, and past chair. And then we also have standing committees for development, finance, media, and membership. I think I'm going to wrap up this video with this. If you're an executive director, I hope you had a pretty good view of what we do. If you're going to be the representative for the group, please check in on the next video. I'm trying to keep them to about 8 to 10 minutes. I hope I've achieved that. And we look forward to talking to you in the next video.